Is there a philosophical, pragmatic way to start talking about the pillars of Christianity? What are the defining things that make Christianity to you, and broadly speaking, to those that follow the religion?
You know, in a way, what we've been doing so far is a necessary propedeutic because we're talking about God. What makes Christianity distinctive, of course, is the claim of the incarnation. So we come up out of Judaism, we come up out of this great monotheistic tradition. And, you know, the Bible itself and all the great commentators within Judaism, I think, would agree with this basic theistic stuff that I've been talking about. Take Moses Maimonides, for example. Now, what makes Christianity distinct? This supremely weird claim that God becomes one of us. God becomes a creature, but without ceasing to be God and without overwhelming the integrity of the creature he becomes. What we see in the burning bush, that principle, which obtains across the board. So the closer God comes to me, the more radiant I become, right? But take that now to the nth degree, would be what we mean by the incarnation of the Son of God becoming a creature in such a way as to make humanity radiant and beautiful. That's the pillar of Christianity. It's the incarnation, you know. And what follows from that is the redemption of all of reality. So not just of human beings, but in becoming a creature, God divinizes the world. You know, the Greek fathers always said God became human that humans might become God. And that's a good way to sum up, I think, the essence of Christianity.
Why is this such an important thing? So it's a distinctive thing.
Yeah.
But why is it so important philosophically to what it means to be a Christian? Like, what impact did that have on our world, on human civilization, on human nature, on our morals of why live, what to live for, the meaning of it all? Like, why is incarnation so important?
Well, I think it's massively important because it's the divinization principle that God wants to divinize his creation and sort of in this concentrated point of Jesus of Nazareth. But then we talk about the mystical body of Jesus. So that goes right back to Paul. As we're grafted on to Christ, we talk about that as the church. We become like cells and molecules in an organism. That's the church. It's not an organization. That's a deformation of ecclesiology. The church is this organism that begins with Jesus, and then he's drawing all of humanity, but ultimately all of nature, all of creation to himself. When the Son of Man is lifted up, he will draw all things to himself. That idea of the gathering in of a scattered creation. So in that way, it's at the heart of it. Then there's all kinds of things. If God becomes human, that means there's a dignity to humanity which goes beyond anything any humanist of any stripe has ever said, right? Ancient, medieval, modern, contemporary. Christianity is the greatest humanism imaginable. God became one of us in order to divinize us. The goal of my life is not just to be a good person, not just to be, you know, materially successful, not just to be a member of society. The goal of my life is to become a participant in the divine nature. And so I don't think there is a humanism greater than that, even conceivably. So that's where I think humanism is profoundly influenced by the incarnation. And just our notion of God as non-competitive to us. That's so important because I think in so many systems from mythology onward, you have these competitive understandings of God. When Jesus says to his disciples the night before he dies, I no longer call you servants, but friends. It's an extraordinary moment because every God, right, who's ever been served, well, that's the best we can hope for is be as the servant of God. Mm-hmm. You know, I try to obey you, Lord. I'll try to do what you want. But when Jesus says, I no longer call you servants or slaves, he would have said in the Greek there, you know, but friends, I don't know. I can't imagine anything greater than that, becoming God's friend.